Hey, y'all. Welcome back to Unmasked with Tari. This is a space where we take off our masks and have real conversations and talk about things that people don't always want to say out loud. And today's conversation is one I think that so many women need because we're talking about something that looks like strength on the outside, but for a lot of
Mhm.
us, it's actually been a trap. This is perfectionism. This episode is special to me because I'm not just talking and sitting down with a guest, but I'm sitting down with somebody who has walked through life with me for over a decade. She's seen me in many different seasons as the strong one, as the growing one, and all of my stretching seasons. Not only is she a trusted friend, but she's also doing powerful work helping women get unstuck mentally and emotionally. And y'all know we all need that. She's an overthinking coach who helps what she calls millennialish women stop second guessing themselves and make confident decisions, finally taking action without going back and forth in their minds. And I know that is one of my problems. And listen, we all know what that truly feels like. So, through her coaching and her Clarity Compass framework, she helps women move out of overthinking and into clarity, confidence, and forward movement. She's a clinical mental health clinician and a professor, also a licensed minister. So she brings both the practical and the spiritual into the work that she does. But most of all, I love that she's real, she's a wife, she's a mother, and she values authenticity in relationships. And if you know her, she's gracefully direct. She's going to help you cut through the noise and actually move forward. So, y'all, help me welcome my friend Teresa. Hey, friend, I'm so glad you're here with me
Thank
today.
you. I'm glad to be here, Tari.
I know I'm so excited for you. I'm excited because I know it's more than just what we're talking about, but it's going to help somebody. So first,
I hope
let me.
so.
I know I think it will, and I know it will because one is God ordained, but two, I know that it's just a thing that women need to get. I was talking to my loctician today, just telling her what we were getting ready to talk about, and she was just saying, "Man, I need to listen to your podcast because I need to be dealt with about perfectionism." So I definitely know that it's a topic that most of us need to fix.
Yeah, it's a big thing all the way around, right? And so I work mostly with millennial-ish women. And I say millennial-ish because it's not just millennials. I have some outliers of women that I work with. But yeah, the overthinking that shows up, especially in perfectionism, is so big. And we just see it in our day to day if we stop and we pay attention to it. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm excited to get into this conversation today.
Well, let's get into it. First, tell me, how did you become what you call an overthinking coach?
Okay. So, you already know I'm a licensed professional counselor. Outside of my clinical training, I became a coach the same way that most powerful coaches do. I lived it. I lived it first, right? And so, outside of my clinical training and learning the things, I've experienced overthinking firsthand for a very long time. I've experienced perfectionism. I've experienced, self criticism, fear of failure, imposter syndrome, comparison, all these things that come with overthinking. I've experienced them myself. And so I know what it's like to overthink decisions. I know what it's like to second guess myself after I've already made a decision. I know what it's like to want to move forward but feel stuck. Like Tara, you already know, like if it's one thing that I do not like feeling like I am backed into a corner. I do not like feeling like I don't have options. I do not like feeling stuck. And so for me, it's not just a theory, it's lived experience. And so I didn't just struggle, I paid attention to that struggle. And that was a difference. But then, you know, I started to figure it out, find my way out with the help of the Lord, of course. At some point, and I know what that point was for me specifically, but I got tired of being in this place where it was just like feeling stuck. So I didn't have this dramatic new year, new me. It was like, wait a minute, I got to do something different. And so I really had to stop and figure out, what is this? Understand where it came from, start flipping that script, kind of like rewriting and reframing it into, okay, what is this? What does this need to look like? How can I make this work for me? Come up with what that strategy needs to look like. what are my strengths, and then really integrate that into my life. And I've seen it, and I really do say it was strategy that came from the Lord, but I've seen it change my life in such monumental ways. In my thinking, in the way that I present myself, in my relationships, in my finances, in my accomplishments and things that I've been able to achieve. And so I've been able to do that for myself, but then also just like talking with women in my day to day life, in my professional life, and realizing, wait a minute, you're dealing with this same thing too? I have a strategy. And like walking them through this same framework, right? Of uncovering and understanding, rewriting and reframing strategy and strength. And then it works for them. And it was like, okay, I did not really think about truly going into coaching because I'm like, okay, I'm a therapist. I'm just going to stick with therapy. But not everyone needed therapy. There were people that legitimately just needed coaching. And I had strategy that worked specifically for them. And that they saw lasting change with after, getting confirmation after confirmation from places and people that I was not expecting. It was like, okay, Lord, I'm going to do it. And so I jumped in. I stopped overthinking it and I jumped in, and it's been a wild ride, but I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying it. Yeah, I'm enjoying it. So that's how I got
So you
started.
jumped in the river, huh? You just jumped all
I
in.
jumped I jumped all the way in, and the deeper you go, the less afraid you are because
Yeah.
you recognize you're doing it out of obedience.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
that for me was like, all right, well, I'm all in. So if I look crazy, I'm out. I'm out here. He's not gonna let me look too crazy. But if I look crazy, then I'm being obedient, being crazy. So
Exactly.
I'm okay.
I think that's a good way to look at it. So let me ask you this question. Because perfectionism is one of those things that we don't always recognize as a problem. Sometimes we call it excellence. Sometimes we just say we just want to do things right, but quietly it keeps us stuck. So let's see, what, when you hear the word perfectionism, what does that really mean to you, not just professionally but also personally?
Oh, so that's a good question because for a very long time before I went on this personal journey myself, it was the same thing. And I didn't use them like intertwine them. I would just say, I believe in operating in excellence. It was all under the umbrella of excellence, but it wasn't excellence. And we can talk about that later. But when I hear the word perfectionism, what comes to mind for me is that perfectionism isn't about doing things well, it's about trying to avoid getting it wrong.
That's good.
So it
I know
looks like
that.
high standards on the outside, but internally there's a lot of pressure. There's second guessing. It's feeling like it's never enough.
Mm-hmm.
So personally, I've had moments where I realized I wasn't actually trying to do my best. It was easy for me to do my best. What I was trying to do was avoid doing anything wrong. I was trying to avoid making any mistakes. I was trying to avoid looking foolish. I was trying to avoid any type of errors. It needed to be flawless.
Yeah.
That was perfectionism. Where I see this professionally, I see women who are capable, who are prepared. I see women who are brilliant, like literally brilliant. I've worked with women that work at NASA. I've worked with attorneys. I work with dentists that own their own practice. I've worked with women in tech. I work with women who, if you took their resume professionally, if you took the accolades that they have, it is literally on someone else's vision board.
Mm.
So you would think that with all that they have accomplished and all they've achieved, there's nothing that would really stop them from going for whatever they want to do next, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's not the case. They hesitate. They overthink, they go back and forth because they don't feel certain enough to move because of this fear of what if I get it wrong? And so when I think about perfectionism, that comes to me. It's this trap of not about doing things well, but I'm just afraid of getting anything wrong. Yeah.
I can say that's really good. Number one, that's the first thing I want to tell you. But I definitely know that feeling. I mean, you know where we came from when we were in Germany, and I sit back and prepare, every time I get ready to prepare for an episode, I'm always praying and seeking the Lord on what does he want us to get out of it. And one of the
Mm-hmm.
things that I, even sat down and looking, like when I was prepping the questions and when I'm looking at this, I'm like, man, God, I understand why it took me so long to get to the point of writing my book, to get even to the podcast. I went back because I'm a journaler. I like journals. And so one of the things that I went into is look back at what when God gave me the idea of the Unmasked podcast, and it was in
Mm-hmm.
2022, and it's taken me 3 years or 4 years to get to the point of even establishing it and looking at it, because I didn't want the criticism of if I said something wrong, if I did something
Yeah.
wrong, or not having it all together. In my mind, that's what I'm thinking about, is what does it need to be for it to be together? But if I look at it, it will never be fully together if I'm the one critiquing if it needs to be done. Because again, we're always harder on ourselves than anyone else could
Absolutely.
be on me. I don't need anyone else to put more stress on myself, from different things. So I want to ask you a question. Oftentimes, do you see in women, and I know you were talking about this earlier, just in high potential earning women, to having it more showing up in more of their life than what you may see somebody even in being a stay at home mom? Or is it just women across the board, but the people you tend to see are the people that are the high earning potential, people who have high stress level jobs, things like that? So speak a little bit about that.
I think it's across the board, honestly, with perfectionism. I think that it shows up in different ways. I've mostly worked with women that are high achieving. And so their struggles with overthinking and perfectionism those things come to me quicker than others, because that's who I'm encountering more. But I think it's across the board. For women that are especially high achieving, I think it's because they're used to being rewarded for doing things well. So at some point, what should just be excellence, it turns into pressure. And now everything has to be done perfectly in order for it to be acceptable.
Yeah.
But I also think for someone that, because just because you're a stay at home mom doesn't mean you're not high achieving either. It could just look different, right? But I think that for women across the board, whether you would consider yourself high achieving or not, perfectionism, social media, like, let's just drop that there, right? Social media has changed the game for what we would have considered acceptable for ourselves. Like, I'm good with this until I look over here and it's like, well, how come your pink lipstick is pinker than mine?
Girl, I can't.
I mean, think about, and I mean, that's a crazy little example, but think about how small. And so it's like, no, I want to have a perfect lip color. I want to have a perfect this. And so it shows up in so many ways. It's so sneaky and it's so subtle. And so I think it's across the board.
Yeah, I know this is an episode that's coming later on after this, but just having the ability to compare ourselves to one another, beforehand, you couldn't see what we deemed to see what was going on behind closed doors.
Mm-hmm.
But now that you're in and I can see all the pictures that someone posts. I can see all the things that's going on. And so now you see those things and it's like, but maybe
And
what
let me
I
tell you,
have isn't good enough.
as a therapist that hear about the behind the scenes of people's lives,
Lord.
it ain't even real. I'll just leave it like that. That's the hard part.
Yes.
Is that people are aspiring to live their lives like what is posted. And that is not even, that's a facade.
That's a whole mic drop right there. I'm here to tell you, because I know where a lot of perfectionism, and I remember going back to doing certain things, and I know, we've been friends for, this year makes like 16 years. It's been a long time. But, I remember, and I said this a couple episodes ago, like, our friend group, everyone in our friend group is dynamic. Everyone in our friend group has something to add. And I just remember having a conversation with the Lord one day, and I was just like, man, God, I can't sing like Joni can sing. I can't sing like so-and-so can sing. And it was just like the Lord had to stop me. And he was like, but I didn't call you to do that. I called you to teach your kids the word of God through, living it out, confessing the scriptures. And when I look at their life now, doing it the way he told me to do it, it made it a lot easier to be okay with who he created me to be because the dynamic of, you coming and doing this, and then, this friend coming over here and doing this part, it made it easier to be comfortable and to be okay with who he called me to be, not looking at someone else. And so I think
And
that
that's the
that
thing,
kind of,
though, is that perfectionism and comparison are like best friends and they hype each other up in the worst way. One sets the standard and the other one makes sure you feel behind. So comparison feeds the
hell,
perfect perfectionism is chasing. And then you have perfectionism that uses comparison as proof that you're not enough. They
first
go
of
hand in
all,
hand. It's like a ping pong, like they go back and forth. All of these things are so intertwined. So it's hard to talk about perfectionism because where there's perfectionism, there's going to be comparison.
that is why
It's one big family.
it's just, I just, first of all, I'm perplexed as to what you're saying, because that was so good in just explaining them together. Do you think, and this is, it's a random question, but this, I'm just following the Holy Spirit, do you feel that women struggle with perfectionism and overthinking and comparison as more than men do, because of how we're kind of raised up? Do you think it comes from how we grew up? Is that where where does it take root in our life? I'm a root person, so I like to know where it all began, so that when God starts to pull stuff out, I'm not just
Oh,
pulling at the fruit of something, but I'm pulling the whole tree up. Like, that's my thing. So go ahead and explain that.
yes, I think that women struggle with these more than men. I don't think that women are more perfectionists or have a perfectionist type nature, but they're that way by nature. I think that we're socialized to be evaluated more.
Mm,
We get messages early on that we need to be likable, we need to be put together, don't mess this up, don't be too much, but also don't be not enough, right? And so then we have comparison baked into how we measure, how we're taught to measure success. Men are valued by their results, by their status, by the work output. Women are measured by their appearance off the gate, right out the gate, how you look, how likable you are, the balance of how well can you balance your career, your home, your relationships, And so I think that there's a very specific pressure that women face that men don't. I think comparison looks different for women than for men because our identity is more relational. We tend to
that's
be more
good.
relationally aware than men are, in
That's
my
really good.
opinion.
Yeah, that's really good. I think that, and I do believe that. I believe that, over time, I think as we get older, after you get a certain age, you just don't care anymore. But I think it takes us getting to that
No,
point in
Tari,
time. What do you mean?
think about what it used to be. So we see men doing some things now where it's like, sir, that's not your hair, but like they spend a little money on getting their little, they got their little lace fronts too now, right?
Honey,
Listen, no
honey.
shade. Do what you got to do. I never want Terry to get one. Baby, just go
Please
ahead and
don't.
keep
I
shape. Just
appreciate
keep
that
shaping
bald
it,
head.
right?
I appreciate that bald head.
But we don't see men getting cosmetic surgery like women. That's number one. Women, even at older ages now, are still getting more and more work done. It used to be. I don't know if it's because finances are a little bit better than that. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's because it's more acceptable. I don't know. But more women, like it used to be like, God, I'm getting older. And a part of getting
Mm-hmm.
older is, I have a little bit more wrinkles or things, starts changing or like,
It's
and
just
so there was
sagging,
a
honey.
level of acceptance of with age comes this. It doesn't mean I let myself go, but with age
Mm-hmm.
comes this, and like I'm okay.
Yeah.
There are women in their 60s getting BBLs.
Facts. I guess for me
And
personally,
that's no shade. I'm just saying.
if that's what you want to do, I just am not willing to be that statistic of the women who die on the table because we're getting cosmetic surgery. But when you said that men
Because
don't
we
get
want to
it,
have the
the
perfect body. And
but
what is the perfect body? And why is the body that God gave us not enough? Especially when you ain't taking care of it, because baby, you can work it out. If you ain't been in the gym,
exactly.
what
But
is perfect?
look,
That's a different
I
conversation.
think, and we can talk about this a little later, because I remember just even having a conversation with God about what we deem to be successful versus what does
Yeah.
success really look like. And I had to really come to grips with the idea that success is not because certain things that I'll call my brother, and we're talking on the telephone as siblings, and we're talking about stuff, and I just remember saying to him, oh, I gotta go pay tuition my for Serenity, or go do this. And he's like, that sounds like rich people problems. And I just looked at him and I was like, you know what, you're right, because my mom could never afford for us to go to college. We had to
Yeah.
get student loans. And so that's when God had to start changing my mind towards what do we deem to be successful. Back in the day, owning a home was considered successful. Owning, all your cars being paid off in full was success. But now the idea of continuously moving the goalposts pushes people to reach beyond. And then you go in and you're like, like the last few episodes, we're talking about the superwoman, we're talking about the strong friend. You're always talking about those things because you're constantly chasing on a hamster wheel, because the more you move, the faster you go. You still not really going anywhere because they move the goalposts every single time. They're moving the
And
goalposts.
that's exactly what perfectionism is like. It's
I
never
believe it.
enough. When is it enough?
And I mean, as long as we're the ones determining it, it's gonna. And I think I'm gonna talk about this in the episode that comes after this. But I wanted to get you on here first. Just really what God showed me about where perfectionism began, and it began in the garden. Is when it truly began. And I'm like, who would even think about that? So, like I said, I study, I pull stuff up. I'm not just pulling stuff out of my tail. I'm actually really looking, because I'm seeking God to be free in myself, and to know, I truly know that I'm not the only one. I'm just the only one willing to put myself out there to really do it,
Yeah.
that may not say anything about it, which is why I want to give people more of a platform to say it, so that they can feel, so we can be free. That was one of the things I was searching, and I was like, what is perfectionism? What is this? Because I know that I've said it several times, but truly to not understand what it is. But if you really want to break it down, it's when you think about perfectionism in the eyesight of what God is saying, He's saying you're telling Him that what He's doing for you is not enough. We
Yep.
push
It's I
His
need to
hand away.
elevate myself beyond what God has already considered to be good. You said this, and when we think about the garden, right? He said this was good. I need to elevate myself beyond what he's already considered good. That's a problem.
Telling you, I pray that this sets people free, because I want people to understand, like I said last week, we have to understand that He does not want us to be conformed to this world. He doesn't want us to take on the mindset. When I looked at what it was in I think it was the NIV or the NLT version, it says, do not be basically persuaded by the beliefs or their customs, the customs of this world. And imagine we're thinking in a mindset of, I got to get it done. This is success. It's not enough. It's not enough. We're continuously pushing in this rat race, when all He really truly wants us to do is rest in Him. That's really what He wants. He
Yeah.
wants us to rest in the finished work. Let me ask you this question. Can you break down for us, in a way that women can recognize it in themselves, what perfectionism and the perfectionism trap really is? I know we probably talked about it, but I wanted to kind of make sure that we did that.
I would say the perfectionism trap looks like when you desire to get it right, when your desire to get it right keeps you from starting or taking the next step.
Mm,
So I want to get it right so bad that I'm not going to even start. It looks a lot like procrastination. Sometimes
mm,
people procrastinate not because they're lazy, but because of, I got to get it right. So you tell yourself, I'm being thoughtful, but you're really delaying action. You tell yourself, I'm being responsible. So you're going to do all the research, right? Before you make a move. You might even over spiritualize, right? I used to do that and I would justify, right? Like, if you're going to build something, you got to count the cost first. That's what the scripture says, right? So I ain't going to do nothing until I count the cost. And if the one wasn't carrying over fast enough, then it's a no for me. I'm gonna have to wait until everything makes sense. Cause now I got Bible to back up why I'm whatever excuse possible to not do what I need to do. Completely no faith whatsoever, right? But you are stuck in the perfectionist trap when I want to get it right so bad that I won't even start or I won't take the next step. When your overthinking has raised the bar so high that you stop moving, you've raised the bar so high that you've stopped moving, you're in the perfectionist trap. And for a lot of women, it hides behind overthinking. You feel like you're being thoughtful. You feel like you're planning. You're being responsible. Like, this is what you're supposed to do. I'm not going into this willy nilly. I want to lay out all the plans and I got to know all the things. No, you're in a trap and you probably don't even recognize it, that you should have moved already.
It took me a long time to really see that that's what was happening. I just like you over spiritualizing it more or less of like, I'm trying to walk in excellence, or I'm just using God's wisdom. Like, this is
Whew.
just wisdom and good counsel. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. And the Holy Spirit said to me in December at the New Year's service here at church, I'm like, man, and God said to me, He said, if you don't do it this year, you're the person there's someone else that will not be able to do what I called them to do because you're lacking in your yes. And I think most times we don't think about how our yes impacts other people, and how if we don't get started, someone's watching you. Someone's watching you. Even though you don't think anyone's watching you, someone's watching you. And, we have daughters, we have a son, and I even look at him, he has the same, going through the same thing in his mind. And because I have written a book, even though I may not feel like the book is like the best thing since sliced bread, but even though he comes to me and he's like, Mom, can you help me with this? How should I do this? And I've just told him, sometimes, son, it's just put pen to paper. It doesn't have to seem to be the best
Just
thing,
start.
the best idea, but it's just the starting that it gets. I can say for it, I'm telling you, I know that the Lord told me to write that book. It took me 5 years. 5 years. Wow, all the while I'm doing other things. And it wasn't until I remember Serenity was going off to study abroad for 3-4 months, and I'm looking at the finances of it, and I'm like, God, what is going on? Like, I need to have this income to be able to do it. And the Lord said to me, if you had done what I told you to do 5 years ago, you wouldn't have to worry about it. And I think that sometimes we don't take into account we look at what we don't have to start, but what is God trying to bring to you in your inability to start? And I'm just looking at, what he's done for you over the years. I mean, I remember when we were in Germany, you were running a FCC business. You had all this stuff. You had your kids. You did this, and then we moved, back to the States, and you're going to school. You're doing the stuff. So there's nothing that you have had or that you've gone through that hasn't built you up to be able to help people now. And I just look at that. And I'm like, man, it's amazing to have witnessed it, and see the growth and what you've done. But I know the struggles that we had behind the scenes, and I know a lot of
Yeah.
people don't see that. And I just really want to encourage people to understand, you're not alone, but two, there is
Yeah.
a way to get through it. And I just want you to kind of give that to them. So I'm going to say to you, kind of, let's shift to see, what is it that you would have to give someone, to help them realize that they've been stuck in perfectionism, and how do they start that shift in their mind?
Before we go there, I want to say this because you mentioned like how your obedience is what someone is waiting for. I also want to add, your obedience is sometimes what you're waiting for.
We just say no
Like
most of the
sometimes it's
time.
not about like I've dealt with some things in my life where, and Tari, because you've been through all the seasons with us, but I've dealt with some things, and for the people that may have known about some things, you'll hear people say things like, this is going to help somebody, and I'm like, I don't care about who this is going to help. I'm not living my life to help nobody.
I know.
I
I
mean,
was there when you said
I've
these
matured
things.
some, but like, I am
Hey,
not.
you said you
The
was
goal of me getting through this is
yeah.
not for me
It's
to help
not
somebody. I'm just trying to get through. Okay. But here's the thing, for the person that hears this and they feel that, like, I'm not trying to help, like, right, your obedience, it is going to help somebody. But also your obedience could be the answers to your own prayer.
Facts.
Sometimes
Facts.
the very thing that you're waiting on is based on your obedience to God. And so you're waiting on God to answer your prayers, and your prayers are waiting on your obedience. And so out of your obedience, the very thing that you feel like you need, or that you legitimately need, or that you want, or that you desire, or the door that you're waiting to be opened, is going to come through your obedience. And so you are delaying what you need, not for people, but for you.
Yeah.
So
I think that's a good point, because one of the things that I think about when we talk about that very situation or that story is the two stories, and I always tell people this when I'm ministering to people. Is there's a difference between Moses and the difference between Joshua. Joshua, God told Moses to stretch forth his rod and he would open up the waters, right? But Joshua, he told him to step. And so when it's like you first get saved, you first give your life to God, all the miracles, all the things just start happening. They happen so quickly, and you're like, man, God loved me. He loved me. And then when he go into discipleship, which Pastor Kev is talking about discipleship right now, that's when it changes. When you become, and even from discipleship to sonship, it changes, because your maturity level is, even if I don't answer this for you right now, will you still be obedient? Will you still do what I said for you to do? And I think that's where it all comes. Is Joshua, he had to step, and then the waters parted. And so I think about that when it comes, not knowing
when it comes to perfectionism, not knowing what the next step may be. But I know that this is a step that I can take, and I'm going to take this step. And as I go, trusting that the next step that I need to take is going to be revealed as I go. We're not going to get the whole map. Most of the time, you will not get the whole map.
You said something, you used the word that we haven't really touched on right here. But perfectionism causes you really to not trust the person you're following. And I believe because we're just trying to get it done. I'm going to get it done, but it's doing it in my own strength and trusting that when he told me was right. Because I know a lot of people don't want to talk about that, but no one can really tell you what the Lord said to you or didn't say to you, except you and the Lord. That's really the truth. And I think some people get hung up on that. I know I've done it. Did he really say that to me? Is that what he said? And so that thinking process in my mind is like, maybe he didn't say that to me, so I'm gonna wait. And then it takes, you being like Gideon. Gideon's like, hey, put the water on the fleece, Lord, and they get all the ground all around. It's almost like we're waiting for those signs and wonders to happen to really guide us into it, instead of truly coming into a place of trusting him when it comes to what he's telling us to do. And if we get it wrong, the problem is we don't want to get it wrong. Especially, I think it's worse when I know that I feel like the Lord really said something and told me, kind of unctioned me to go forward into doing something. That's when I really step back and I'm like, ooh, I don't know if I'm supposed to do this. I don't know. Maybe I didn't hear God.
Practice swift obedience. Because you will talk yourself out of doing the thing that you're supposed to do, especially if you are dealing with perfectionism. You will be like, okay, well, I don't know. Did he really say this? Well, maybe I should wait until I'm a little bit more clear. Maybe I should wait until I'm more confident on this. Maybe, well, I don't know, because what about this part? Like, now we're looking for guarantees. And so you will talk yourself out of it. And so when you know that the Lord has given you something to do, quickly, swiftly obey. Otherwise, you open the door up to not that the enemy is not real. We already know the enemy for the devil is real, right? We have a real adversary. However, he don't have to work hard. we open the door for ourselves to
Yeah.
talk. He's like, I don't have to do nothing. You're going to get ready
Yeah.
to talk yourself out of it. Like, I'm just going to
Yeah.
sit back and you're going to do it. And we do. We talk ourselves out of it. And so swiftly obeying. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I can understand that. So let me ask you this. What is perfectionism truly costing women? What is it costing them
Ooh.
emotionally and mentally?
I think it costs a whole lot more than what we could really quantify.
Mm,
It will cost you time. You burn through time trying to feel safe
that's good. That's
because
good.
you're trying to guarantee certain results before you take a step or before you move.
Mm-hmm.
You're burning through time. So you're tweaking things instead of just working on finishing it. You're doing all this research instead of actually making a decision. Instead of deciding on what you're going to do or when you're going to start, you're just waiting, right? It's costing you energy. It's costing you confidence. It's costing you momentum. You get exhausted from thinking so much. You have all this movement, but you're actually not moving. It costs you your confidence. It costs you your self-worth. Every time that you hesitate, you teach yourself that you can't trust. Number one, if the Lord told you to do it, every time you hesitate, you're reinforcing, I don't know if I can trust him. But then you're teaching yourself, I can't trust that I can make a healthy decision. So there's like this slow erosion of your confidence. And your confidence is not going to be built by thinking. It's going to be built while you do.
Man, that's so
You
good.
delay your purpose. I've seen women sit on ideas. I've been one of them. Sit on ideas, sit on opportunities, sit on callings. And it's not that they didn't have what they needed to have. It wasn't because they weren't capable or because they didn't feel ready. It's because they overthought it. Everything has to be just right. And here's the $1,000,000 question. What does just right look like? The answer is a moving target. The bar is constantly you never get every time I ask that question, the answer changes. Or they can't give me an actual answer. Like I can't get a concrete answer on what that actually looks like. And so it's costing you a lot. It's costing you freedom.
That's facts.
That's this torment to feel stuck, to feel like, or to experience, to know that there's something I'm supposed to be doing, that there is something that is on the inside of me that I know that I'm supposed to be doing. And I'm watching life happen as if I'm sitting on the sidelines.
Mm-hmm.
And I can play in a game, but because I don't have the quite perfect play, or I might even have the perfect play, I may not have the perfect laces in my shoes. Because that's how small perfectionism will come in like the smallest ways. I will sit on the sideline of life. And so torment, knowing that I'm supposed to be, but I'm not. And yeah, it costs you more than you can afford.
I think that's really deep because I don't think anyone thinks that far into it, but I know prior to me just really cementing in my mind, like, this is what I'm going to do. I had already had really created a whole nother podcast, and it was about real estate. Nothing to say that still can't do that. I just, one of the things for me, I didn't want to feel like it was one more thing I got to put on my plate, one more thing that I have to do, and especially when it comes towards work. And so I was like, man, I could do this, and everybody's like, oh, you should do it. It's because, but on the other hand, I had this thing that God told me to do, and that I know I desire to help the younger generation. I desire to help the women coming up behind me, the Serenities, the different girls that are getting married, just to impact their life on a way that we desired someone impacted our lives when we first, got married and things like that. And so I was like, man, I want to do this. And I sat down. It was in the middle of the night. Josh had gone out of town, and it was me and the kids, and Serenity was in the living room, and she had come into my room late at night. Mind you, social media is listening to everything you talk about. I don't care what nobody say. But I started getting a lot of marketing towards podcasting. And I was like, but we can pretend like God doesn't use things like that to talk to you, but he was, and I knew he was. And so I was like, okay. So I told, went down in my AI, and I'll start telling it, like, what is this? And so Serenity had come in the room, and she steps in, and then she goes back out, because I guess when she saw that the light was off, she was like, oh, she's asleep. but I was underneath my head was under the covers. So I called her and she didn't answer. So I texted her and I was like, hey, did you need something? And I felt this overwhelming feeling of, not, it wasn't dread, like almost conviction. It was almost like a conviction, but it was like, I need you to do it. It's like a sense of urgency. So I go and I stand out and I'm talking to her in the living room and she's like, Mom, what's wrong? And I was like, I don't know. I just got this feeling like I cannot, not to say that I don't want to do this real estate podcast, but I cannot do another thing for real estate without doing what God called me to do. And if this is what I'm supposed to do, then I need to do it. And I just began to cry. And she was like, Mom, like, whoa, hold on. And she's like, what's
What's going
happening?
on?
And I told her, I said, the powerful message that's coming from doing this Unmasked podcast is what people don't understand about worship and how you go into the tabernacle. And every part of the tabernacle releases something for you to go into the holies of holies. And I was like, it is so. And she's like, I think you got your answer, Mom. And I was like, okay. And I turned around and I went and laid down because it was, I need you to understand is more to it than what you think that it is, but it's, I need you to do it. Just start. And so that's why I got to that point. And I think sometimes it takes those moments to really bring people full circle into, this is not about me. It's about him. And if I'm doing it for him, no matter what it looks like, he can always perfect it. He can always make it, he can make it good. And then you can go in and tweak things and learn
Yeah.
more. The more you learn
Let's
about
just get
something,
started. Yeah.
just
Let's get
get
started. We
started.
can make it good later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I told you last week, a couple weeks ago, the Lord was like, I was talking to him about I just wanted to be a good wife, God. I just wanted to be a good wife. And he was like, girl, I didn't ask you to be no good wife. I just asked you to be. He was like, good has one too many O's. And so I was like,
Amen. Okay.
so I think that what we think about, is not what God really wants. I think the standards of the world, God is like, my standards are high, but they're not equivalent. What we look at as it being equivalent is not. He's like, that is not, I'm not even looking at that. I'm looking
I
at,
mean, but even outside of that, like you think about perfectionism, right? One of the reasons that I equate it to being torment is because it doesn't turn off. Your mind never lets you rest. That's not of God.
girl, I'm talking about no
You
sleep.
feel pressure about things that you actually care about. You beat yourself up for things that you avoid and that you delay. Like, peace is always conditional on when it's done right. When I fix it, when I get to this point, once it's excellent, once it's all together, once it's better, once you're hyper aware of yourself, you're super dependent on yourself. Those all align with tormenting thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Perfectionism is rooted in fear. It's fear of getting it wrong, fear of being exposed, fear of not being enough. Fear creates this inner pressure that feels like torment, and there is no fear in love, right? And so, yeah, it's torment, and it's it can be difficult because there is this misunderstanding that excellence and perfectionism are the same, and they're just not the same.
Yeah. So let's talk about how we can actually get free from this thing, because my sister trying to be free. We're trying to be free. What's the first mindset shift someone needs to make to even begin breaking free from perfectionism?
I think the first mindset shift is actually very simple mindset shift. You don't need to feel ready. You just have to be willing.
I think people get ready and willing as they use the word as if it's synonymous. And I think that is, because even in real estate, they talk about the same thing. It's like when you bring a buyer, you're bringing a ready and willing buyer, ready because they have already prepared for that portion, meaning, they've got the pre approval, they're ready to go, like you're ready to go. But willing means I need to make sure I want to buy this house.
Mm-hmm.
I want to do this. And so I think when it comes to that, speak on what does it really mean to be willing to do it. Because if I'm not really willing, then how am I going to move forward anyway?
Willing doesn't really require confidence. It doesn't require perfect conditions. Willing doesn't require certainty. Willing is, I'll try it. I'm nervous, but I'll do it anyway.
It
Willing
sounds so
is,
simple.
I don't have all the answers, but I'll take the next step. Willing is, I might not be the best at this, but I'm gonna do it. Willing is, I'll move even if I don't feel good about it. Even if I don't know what the outcome is gonna be, I'm still gonna. Willing is, I'm open to attempting.
So let me ask you
Ready
this.
is, I'll do it when I feel like I got this in the bag. When I feel good about it, now I'm ready.
So, question. This is just an off the wall question, but do you think willing? It's like I don't know if it is more or less the way that it comes to me. This is the way the conversation is more willingness is more of a heart posture. It's more of a heart posture because it is saying where, my mind is going, my body will follow. If I'm doing it, if I purpose in my heart to do it, if I purpose in my heart, and then now I bring actions that support that what's in my heart, then my body is going to follow. It's going to get to where I'm taking action. But if it's not in my heart, I can't do it.
I think that's it. Sorry. I think that willing is absolutely a heart posture. Ready is, I would say ready is more of a mind thing. It lives in your mind. It's about logic. So ready is, okay, this makes sense. I feel confident. Ready is a checklist. Ready is analytical. It's cautious. It's calculating safety. Willing is a heart posture. It lives in your heart. I don't fully get it, but okay. I'm a little uncomfortable, but I'm open to it.
Yeah.
Willing is, God, I don't know, but I trust you to move. Willing is
good.
Openness and surrender.
Yeah. I think that's
I think
good
that's
statement. Yeah. I think that's a good statement because that in my mind I'm saying what's in my heart abundantly will come out of my mouth eventually. Right? So, if my heart is full of the plans of God, the things that he's saying, the ways, his word, then what will come out is it's going to come out of my mouth, and then my actions are going to follow. My body is going to follow because truthfully, we don't do anything without it first starting with the word, without it coming out of our mouth. I think we speak those things. We have to speak it. And I think that's what part of it is really truly gonna kind of really push people forward in seeing it like, hey, it makes more sense to have it broken down like that.
And I think that ties into excellence versus perfectionism.
Girl, you was right on my next question. Because how do we truly separate excellence from perfectionism? How do we do that mentally, emotionally, spiritually? How do we separate the two so we know how to identify them when we see them?
So just like willing is a heart posture where I'm open to it. I'm going to try. I'm open to just trying it, right? Excellence is doing your best and moving forward. I'm going to give it the best that I have and I'm going to move forward. Perfectionism is trying to guarantee a certain outcome before I even make a move. So excellence allows you to move.
Teresa, I need you to repeat
Perfectionism it requires that you have certainty. So think about it this way. Excellence has like standards. Standards are flexible. They're personal. They're grounded in you doing your best. So I want to do this well. I'm going to give this my best effort. Today I'm going to do good enough. I'm going to do enough to just move forward. I'm not going to beat myself up for this is what I have today. So I'm going to give it today, right? So that's the standard. Comes with excellence. Perfectionism has requirements. Requirements are rigid. You must do this. They're unforgiving, and they depend on the outcomes. So it has to be right. I can't mess this up. I got to be sure before I can do it. What if it's not good enough? There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of hesitation. So standards, they guide you and they allow you to make progress. Requirements really can trap you and cause stagnation because I can't move until I can have clear guidance or clear understanding that I'm going to have a guaranteed outcome.
That's crazy. That is definitely.
Perfectionism requires certainty. Excellence, I can move with excellence because there's flexibility. Not with perfectionism.
It's what I call a hard taskmaster. Hard taskmaster. It's like, like get out there and do it.
Yeah.
Get out there and
Yeah.
do it. And I think that I think perfectionism leaves no room for grace. I know that, like I said, I'm way harder on myself than anyone else could ever be. And dealing with perfectionism, I struggled with grace. And I know me and you talked about this a couple times. It's just, it's like, even in my walk with God, it's like it proved to me that I didn't have grace like everybody else did. Like,
Mm,
God is like, no, you can't do this. No, oh, you made this mistake. Like, you gotta own it. You're gonna live in it. You're gonna, stay there for a little while, and then I'll come back and get you. And so for me, there was no grace. And it wasn't until I got here to San Antonio that the Lord really started showing me, like, I've given you grace in that. Like, think discipline and the rigid part of my relationship with God was necessary when I was trying to come out of things. This is how I deemed it to be. And it was kind of necessary for that season to try to
mm-hmm.
get you into the, hey, I need you to pray every day. Hey, I need you to do this. But then what happened was, if I didn't do it
Beat
one
yourself up.
day or one, I would beat myself up and like, man, God, you didn't. So I can see how perfectionism even flowed in my relationship with God, because it was like, if I didn't do it all right, then I didn't have grace. And it wasn't until coming to San Antonio that I really began to be free of the legalism and religiosity of my relationship with God, because you're taught that. And I think perfectionism, you're taught to be a perfectionist. You're taught to, it's something that you take on, and then it's made
Mm-hmm.
to be normalized. So,
Yeah.
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 I got another question for you. What are some practical things that women can start to do when they kind of feel stuck in overthinking?
Oh, number one, download my clarity compass.
Hey, that's not a shameless plug here. We
It's
came
not a
on this
shameless plug because it's a great
it's a
resource.
great,
Legit.
hey,
It's legit a great resource, and it's
yeah,
of no charge. Legit,
yeah,
it's a great resource.
yeah, that's good.
Decide faster.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of things that people are overthinking, that we are overthinking as women, we really don't need more time to think about. A lot of things that people are overthinking are not life or death situations. They're not even like, if we were to create a hierarchy of how serious of a decision is this, it's not even that serious, right? And so decide faster. You don't need more time to decide.
Mm-hmm.
You need a boundary around your thinking. And what that can look like is give yourself a decision window. I'm giving myself, depending on,
The
the weight of the
severity of
decision
it.
that you have to make, 10 minutes, 24 hours, 3 days max,
Mm-hmm.
right? Ask one question: what makes the most sense based on what I know right now? Make a choice and move on. What not to do is stop researching past the point of clarity. So it's one thing to say, okay, I have to make a decision. It's like, man, I don't know what to do. Okay, well, have you thought about this? Well, see, I still don't know about this part. Okay, we'll get the information about that part. And then once you get the information about that part, stop and make a decision. We get that information and then we keep research. Like, you have enough information to make the decision. So stop researching past the point of clarity. Don't ask, stop outsourcing your information. Stop outsourcing and like doing a telephone line or texting everybody to ask what they think, right? And so asking all these people after you already got your answer, after you already know what you should do.
Mm-hmm.
Stop waiting to feel certain.
Mm-hmm.
We do a lot of things based off of how I feel. I just feel something in my spirit, or maybe your spirit is just off. Maybe your spirit is wrong, right? Like, I just feel it in my gut. You need a good probiotic and prebiotic.
Help,
right?
us,
Like, your gut you haven't had enough fiber. So your gut is not a good indicator.
It is full of boo boo. I'm sorry, I had to go there because that's what you.
Especially if you make poor decisions. Like,
yeah,
trusting your gut is not. If you are a believer, I challenge you to show me a scripture that says trust your gut.
It sounds
That's problem number one. You trust in your gut. So stop waiting for a feeling. Right. Stop waiting for a feeling. Most of your Also, the delay that people have with making decisions or from perfectionism, it's not because of a lack of information. It's a fear of taking responsibility for what's going to happen after I make this decision.
Yeah. Because
And so
I
you
don't
got
want
to be
somebody to
honest about.
say, yeah, I don't want anybody to say that,
And who going to say
especially
something? You a
wives.
full
I know,
adult. You a full
especially
grown up.
wives though. I think, and you've been with me. Everything that I've ever started, I've always kind of gone down this road, but at the same time, I was also trying to find where he was placing me in my purpose to do what he called me to do. And I told the Lord right before I started this, if I could just get paid to do this, I could do this all day. I could do this all day. This is what I love to do. I
Yeah.
love to sit down and talk to people. I love to hear different concepts and thought processes behind stuff. And I can talk about Jesus all day. I mean, that's really what we all could do if you really like it.
Yeah.
But if you don't like people and you don't like that, but my business is talking to people all day. The only difference is that I'm not always talking about Jesus. Am I talking about mortgage loans and buying a house? Yeah, but I'm not always talking about Jesus. And I wanted
Yeah.
to find a place that I could be able to do that without shame and without recourse of like, oh, you can't say that, you can't do that. So
Yeah.
creating,
That freedom.
this place, that freedom was doing that. That's why I feel freer in my mind just being able to do this and still go out and do what I'm doing, during the day. And I pray that God blesses it to go. But even if he doesn't, I'm like, man, I still got a job on the outside. But I think that that was one of my things, was being free to really be me, being free to be me. And I think in my job you can be, but it's to a limit. It's still limited. It's still this I say compartmentalized, because I can only go so far. I can only say so much. I can only do so much. And my personality is very raw and uncut, very much so, very blunt and things like that. And you have to taper that down in
Yeah.
order to, hey, I'm Tari, welcome out. It's just, and it's not putting on a front for people. It's just limiting my the access that people have to me on that level. But if it's something else that we're talking about, I can do it. But it was hard, and it was hard for me to feel complete doing just that part, because real estate is what I do. It's not who I am. This and what
Yeah.
we're doing right now, this is who I am. This is because I can laugh, I can talk, but we're still talking about Jesus, and we're still giving him glory in what we're doing. And I can get down with
Yeah.
that any day. So I got
Yeah,
a
you got to
question
be able
for
to
you.
do things and do it without the fear of what this would look like. That
Yeah.
would be one of those things. Another thing would be act before you feel ready. Again, you can't rely on your feelings. And so act before you feel ready. Do the smallest version of whatever that thing looks like today. Expect discomfort and move anyway. I think that we live in a very, I can be on a high horse on this soft
That's your
life.
soapbox. That's your soapbox.
Listen, I'm all for a soft life in certain ways, but y'all, we're not going to live a soft life in every way possible. And so you can't expect discomfort. It's a part of growth. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not uncomfortable in some type of way, you're not growing. And the only things that don't grow are dead things, right?
The
And
facts.
so let action be your confidence builder. Stop waiting to feel confident. Stop over preparing for simple things. Stop convincing yourself that you'll do it later when you're in a better headspace, because you know you're not. And the last thing I would say is stop reopening decisions. When you decide, when you make a decision, it's done. It's a done deal. Move
Mm-hmm.
on. When your brain tries to revisit, remind yourself, I already made a decision. We're done. Redirect your energy somewhere else so that you're not replaying that decision. You're not, questioning if it was right, because that perfection is, well, did I say it right? Maybe I should have did this. It's done. Move on.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to mentally undo your own progress. But reopening those decisions is what's going to drain your confidence and keep you stuck in that place of overthinking and perfectionism.
Question: where does grace come in that process? How do we bring that to God to allow us to see the grace that he's given for us in that moment?
Grace allows you to show up imperfectly without disqualifying yourself. Again, think about being someone who struggles with perfectionism. Sometimes, even the way you see yourself and present yourself to God. I got to clean myself up before I come to Him. I got to do all these things, like these rituals in our head or whatever we do, right? Before we present ourselves to the Lord. And He probably looking like, what are you doing? What are you doing, right? Like, you don't wasted all this time. You done did all these things to prepare to go into His presence, that you did all this, and by the time you did all that, you forgot that you even trying to go before Him, right? And so I think that grace allows you to show up imperfectly without disqualifying yourself.
Yeah. So I think that's an important concept, or just even a something to bring to your remembrance, is that it's the grace for Him, for us to show up in that manner, doesn't mean that we're not. I think He already knows that we're imperfect. I mean, we all know that He knows we're imperfect people, but to know that He's giving us the grace to be able to do what He's called us to do. Like we're graced for this, is what we say. And I think that's the concept that people just miss, is that
Mm-hmm.
he wouldn't have said, my grace is sufficient for you, if at some point in time He knew that our imperfections would need a little boost to get us to the next level, to get us to the
Yeah.
next space,
Yeah.
to also, just a thought, if we were full of ourselves, there would be no room for Him. It would be no room for grace. It would be, if we could get it all done, there would be no room for grace at all.
Yeah.
It would be no reason for it, because we got it. And so there's no need for Him if we were perfect, if we were without, truly without spot or blemish. We understand that the grace, we are righteous because of Him, because of what Jesus did. But if you really think about the ability to be fully human and fully perfect, I mean, technically we'd all be superheroes and demigods, I think that's what it is like but even them, they still have something that keeps them grounded, to know you're still half human, and that humanity is what brings you, to the knees of, I need Him. And that's what
Yeah.
perfectionism truly doesn't allow, is it doesn't allow you to see your humanity. And like, it's like, man, I mean, I could do everything.
His grace can't be sufficient if you're perfect.
Because you already know that I could end right there. His grace wouldn't even be needed if we were perfect. Like, why would we need
So we
that?
don't even have to aspire for perfection.
Perfection, man. That's
If
good.
you want His grace, don't even aspire for perfection. I'm just going to go with grace.
I'm gonna go with grace. Say, with grace and grace. I'll put my hands to the plow and do it.
Yep.
Knowing that I'm going with His grace and in the ability to do it. So what does it look like to truly trust God and not try to control everything? Because I think, for me personally, the fear I dealt with, the fear of not failure, but the fear of success, because it didn't allow me to be able to take in the moments of, I just graduated with my degree, I just wrote a book, I just did these things, that it's like no one's gonna give me the option to rest in this. Is, what are you gonna do next? What's the next thing? What's the next degree you're gonna get?
Nothing.
You said I ain't gonna do nothing.
What's the next degree you gonna get?
Child, I ain't doing nothing. I don't want to go back to nobody's school right now.
But like, that's my response, right? What makes you think that because I just completed something, you get to rush me to my next success?
Mm-hmm.
Who says that that's what I'm supposed to be doing?
Yeah.
What's the last thing you did?
Help.
And so people don't get to decide what my next thing is.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that sometimes we need to set up boundaries where it's just like, no.
Yeah.
You said, what does it look like to truly trust God and not control everything?
And not control everything. How how can I apply that to my life? Because I think not every person that listens is listening to us today or is going to hear this podcast is going to truly know what trusting is. Because one thing I want you to know is why I started this is because just remembering where we've been, understanding that a lot of people always give you the churched answer and they never tell you what does it look like. Okay, well, you tell me to go read the word. What should I read? Where should I go? What should I pray? And so I want to give people practical things for them to know that they're looking at that. And how do you know, how do we know we're walking in faith? How do we know we can trust God with this? And what does it look like? And not really putting God in the box of the boundaries that we think we know.
A few things come to mind. You move when you have direction, not when you have guarantees. So you pray, you get clarity, and then you go. And I know that is so anti perfectionism, but so is God, right?
Exactly.
You don't need to triple check. You don't need to wait for perfect conditions. You don't need to ask for more confirmations like Gideon. You say, okay, I have enough clarity to move. Control will say, I need more before I start. It's a stubbornness.
That's an
It's
ouch
a
moment right
rebellion.
there.
It's rebellion.
That's an
I'm
ouch
not moving
moment.
until you tell me more. You release whatever the outcome is, even if it's something that you really, really care about. You still plan, you still prepare. This is not, oh, it don't matter, whatever, right? You still plan, you still prepare. But you're not holding on to it like this has to work. It has to go
Yeah.
how I, imagined it. You
Yeah.
do your part and you let God be God.
You said something that makes a lot more sense is because I know me and you, we've been friends a long time. We're planners. We
Mm-hmm.
like to plan and we like to know that what we're doing. But I think in that planning of doing what God is saying, we have to learn how to be flexible. And perfectionism doesn't allow you to be flexible and to move, like we say, move like Gumby. Gumby moved and he ain't had no back, he ain't had no spine. He just moving all over the place, like the little man in the blow up thing at the
Yeah.
car dealerships. He doesn't have that. And I think that we get so stuck and regimented in our plan that if it doesn't go this way, and I started reading a book last night called Bamboozled by Jesus, right? And the way she comes out already off the muscle, first chapter in, and I'm like dying laughing because she's a comedian at the same time, but I understand what she's saying. She says it like this. She says, he tricks me into living the life that I never dreamed of. And I can say, if we can just be free of all the things that we think are supposed to happen and just kind of, people who function in perfectionism can't go with the flow, man. They can't go with the
because
flow.
because
They
they're
try
trying
to
to
control the
predict
flow.
every they try to predict and prevent every possible problem.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to be able to try to think about what's the problem that can happen. I want to list all the things that could possibly happen,
Mm-hmm.
and then I want to try to prevent all those things. Control. I got to be able to foresee everything, fix it all in advance, eliminate all risk before I'm ready to take a step.
Yeah. In my head, I see this going to the shopping cart and perfectionism is pushing a shopping cart down the aisle and it's just got control in it, all different kinds of things going along with it, comparison. We just walking down, going down this aisle. That's what I see in my head
Listen, they're all
because you have
fighting
to
to push the cart. Because
help.
you can't tell who's in control from one minute to the next. That's the reality. It's almost like split personalities. They all like try to take over at some, like you can't tell, like perfectionism is no longer driving the car. It's in the passenger seat.
Yeah.
Comparison is in the front seat. Oh no, now they like it'll switch up on you in a
It's a
heartbeat. Yeah.
struggle, and it's a struggle in your mind, and God says a double-minded man is unstable in all his
Unstable.
ways. And I just think about that, just like basically perfectionism, judgment, because that's what it causes you to have, judgment on yourself, self-criticism, all of these things that are basically trying to run the ship, and you can't go anywhere because the driver's not in the seat and you think you
Yeah.
driving, but really you going nowhere because y'all can't even make y'all mind up where we going today.
Yeah.
So I mean,
And that it tricks people into, it tricks a lot of women into feeling like they're not ready.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's not, where are you getting that from?
Yeah. Who told you
That
that?
you're not ready.
Who told you that?
So you've been sitting on something. Like,
I'm okay. You ain't gotta yell at me. I feel it.
I'm just
I told
saying.
you gave me an ouch moment like 5 minutes ago. God, okay, I hear you. But I know that it's a necessary thing because there's so many it's like this. You can't say to God, I want to live a life poured out while you're trying to control the pour that's coming out. I don't
Mm,
understand.
my God.
I'm like, God, help me, because those are things that we have sung, we have prayed, we have watched, and now God is like, okay, you want to live a life poured out? Go out and do this. And you're like, but wait a minute, God, that's not what I was talking about. But hold up, God, that's not what we were discussing.
Just
You
singing anything because the lyrics on the
just,
screen. You ain't,
honey,
just stop saying stuff that you don't want to really mean. You don't
because you're
mean
not
that.
professing, you're prophesying things in your life and don't fully understand. We can't do any of those things unless you're willing to be free. And I'm trying to get you free. That's what I'm saying. So, if you could speak directly to the women listening right now who has been sitting on something for months or even years because she doesn't feel ready, what would you say to her? And just give that for your final thoughts. And we're going to get out of here.
What would I say? And then final thoughts. I would say, if you keep waiting, you'll stay in the same place. If you keep waiting for it to be perfect, you'll stay in the same place. One of my really good friends last week, she sent me a message and she was like, Teresa, is this real? And it was a picture of cornstarch chunks. Have you heard of this, Tari?
Mm-mm.
Girl, I had to text my sister, like, have you heard of this? Cornstarch chunks. It's what it sounds like. Cornstarch, but chunks of cornstarch. And people are selling, and more importantly, or more interesting, people are buying cornstarch chunks.
I got so many questions.
I think people are chewing them. They like the texture of them. So now there's like, I've seen some because I immediately was like, what? So I Googled it. Obviously, I'm tardy to the party because Google started filling in cornstarch chunks near me, cornstarch chunks Etsy, cornstarch chunks Amazon, cornstarch chunks flavored, cornstarch. It's a whole thing.
Are you serious?
And so I say that to make this point to the woman that is in her head overthinking. Perfectionism has you stuck, bound in a trap. Somebody's out there buying cornstarch chunks, and you are scared that whatever it is that you're supposed to be doing is not going to work, that you're going to get it wrong, that it's going to fail. You're just wanting to wait a little bit longer, and somebody is buying somebody else's homemade cornstarch chunks. So my question that I will leave before giving my final thought is, how much longer are you willing to delay your own life waiting on a feeling that is not required? If you are waiting to feel ready, if you are waiting to be more prepared, that is a feeling that is not required. So how much longer are you willing to sit on the sidelines of your own life waiting for something that is not required in order for you to move? Cornstarch chunks. That's my word for you. Cornstarch chunks. Final words. There's a scripture that the Lord has highlighted to me over the past 2-3 weeks, and that's Psalms 90 and 12. Teach us to number our days so that we may gain a heart of wisdom. And I've heard it before, but like lately, it stuck with me when I read it a couple of weeks ago. And teach us to number our days, living with an awareness that your time is limited and it is valuable. You do not have time. You do not have unlimited days to keep circling the same decision. You do not have time to sit in your head debating every single move. You do not have time, an unlimited amount of time, to make everything perfect or to have guaranteed results or a guaranteed outcome before you take a next step. Numbering your days helps you to have this urgency with wisdom, but not with panic. So you have to move on it. The Bible says that there is a time for everything, so you don't have to control everything. We are instructed to ask God for wisdom, so ask Him for wisdom and then make your move. You can plan it, but God will direct it. And so you can release the pressure to get it perfect. But number your days. Live with an awareness that your time is limited and it is valuable. You don't have time to let perfectionism rob you. Perfectionism is costing you. And so, yeah, make a move. Make a move.
Well, I definitely want to take this time for you to pray and just pray for the woman that God is trying to free through this conversation. And then we're going to have our conclusion and sign off. And I just go ahead and pray. So,
Okay. You said prayer just for any women that's dealing with perfectionism. Okay. Father, I thank you for every woman that's listening and watching this podcast. You know the hearts of your women, Father, for those that feel like everything depends on them getting it right, those that feel tired, those that feel weighed down, those that have been overthinking, overanalyzing, holding themselves to a standard that you never asked of them, Father, those that have been waiting to feel ready, waiting to feel sure, and in a process, those that have felt stuck. Your word says in Proverbs 3 5 through 6 to trust in you with all of our hearts and lean not to our own understanding and to acknowledge you in all of our ways, and you will direct our paths. And so, right now, I release and I encourage these women, Father. I pray that you would help them to release the need to figure everything out before they move. I pray that you would help them to trade perfectionism for obedience, that they would obey and that they will obey swiftly, that you would remind them that your grace is enough. Just like you said in 2 Corinthians 12 and 9, Father, that they don't have to perform for your approval because they already have it. Father, I ask that you would give them courage to act even when it's uncomfortable, and that if they wait for perfect conditions, that they'll never move. So help them to move anyway. Father, I pray that you would quiet the fear that tells them they have to get everything right, and that you would let your truth be louder than their doubt. I thank you because your word says that your love pushes out fear. It doesn't feed it. So teach them to do their work with excellence, not anxiety, not perfection. Help them to show up fully without trying to control everything, to trust that you are guiding their steps, even though they can't see the full picture. Help them to choose willingness, help them to choose obedience over overthinking, and to choose trust instead of control. In Jesus' name, amen.
amen. Amen. I appreciate you. Thank you again, Teresa, for coming here. And I pray
Absolutely.
that God continue to bless your stuff and with grace and grit so that you can go and help more women who have been stuck in overthinking. And I just thank you. Everybody, thank you again for listening to our podcast, Unmasked with Tari. And I appreciate it. If you like this video or if you like this podcast, please like and share and subscribe. You can find us on Amazon. You can find us on Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. Please make sure that you like and subscribe. And we just want to thank you. And hey, show up next time so that we can get unmasked. See you later. Bye.